Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play Position 3 Spirit Breaker. I recently just had a viewer in my chat force me to play this as an offlaner. So for basically the first time ever, I hopped into it and absolutely stomped. This game I went 6-0, and I'm going to show you guys everything you need to know about why Spirit Breaker is actually a very strong offlaner when put in the right game. I think a lot of people might watch this video and think to themselves, oh, I'll just pick Spirit Breaker, it's broken. I'm going to lay out a couple of ideas, a couple of situations that need to kind of take place for this hero to be a good offlaner, and I think if those are fulfilled, then this hero is an absolute menace. And you're gonna see why. By the way guys, if you want to become absolutely broken, well, what you need to do is sign up to the GameLeap website down below right now. The reason why you should do that is because every single day we post a new video there. Content that you simply just will never get on YouTube, we post every single day to the website. It's really top tier stuff. I'm very proud of what I make over there. We also have other creators, many of my great friends who are top tier Dota players, creating guides about different heroes, different roles, different items, skill builds, talent builds, everything you need to know to get to the next rank. So if you feel a little bit lost, you're a little bit stuck, click the link down below. I'll see you guys there. And now let's get into the video. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand why Spirit Breaker is buffed specifically as a core and not really as a support was that a few patches ago, they increased Greater Bash, they buffed it, where it does 50% more damage to creeps. This is massive because all of a sudden, it becomes an ability that can be used to secure range creeps, melee creeps, and most importantly, shove waves, and just farm in general with Charge of Darkness. Because if you guys don't know how Charge of Darkness works, is it bashes based and does damage based upon Greater Bash. So when you charge through a creep wave, it does Greater Bash damage, therefore doing 50% more damage to creeps. This gives you a way to farm, and so that's huge. The next thing I want to talk about is that I had an IO in my lane. Honestly, even though this was my first ever Spirit Breaker game, I've watched a few other Spirit Breaker offlane games, and the main thing that I've noticed is that this hero struggles when it lacks a sustain hero in lane. Not always, of course, it is a 5 armor hero with decent base HP regen, but, for instance, I'm against a Weaver Ursa lane. You can imagine that if I had a more passive position 4, such as a Nyx Assassin or an Earthshaker, I wouldn't have as good of a time. As I said, I go 6-0 this game with a ton of assists. But IO was honestly perfect. So if you happen to have a friend, I know a lot of you guys don't, but if you happen to have a friend, I highly recommend this combo because it gives you infinite sustain in the lane. It gives you charge plus relocate combo in the mid game, which we didn't actually use, so that one's a bit tough. And then the big thing, which it might not seem like it, but the big thing is infinite sustain and attack speed from overcharge. This ability with Spirit Breaker is insane. The spell amp is really good with Greater Bash and your ultimate, and the attack speed is nutty in the laning stage to work just simply with Greater Bash, and the HP regen with a hero that's constantly brawling and fighting and getting chipped down is incredible. So honestly, this lane is kind of just broken. So early on into the lane, I was trading a lot. I do want you guys to keep in mind that if you pick this, and I'm assuming you're not picking it with IO, or even like, you know, anything like a Warlock or an Abaddon, you need to play generally passive. You are a very high base damage, high armor hero, so you can trade occasionally, especially if the enemy walks through their wave into you, feel free to hit them. But in general, the main thing you want to abuse is the fact that you have very high base damage. With non-optimal base damage starting items, I still have 69 damage, which is absolutely insane. So the upcoming play I'm about to show you right here is a very high efficiency play that I think you guys should look for in the laning stage. So basically what I'm going to be doing here is trying to optimize charge to not only secure the range creep, but also get in value damage. This is the same with any nuke that is AoE in the laning stage. You want to secure a creep and hit the enemy with it. Tidebringer, Puck Orb, everything is the same in that regard. So what you'll notice I do here is I walk up, I line up my charge where it will hit the range creep, I wait for it to get in range, and then I charge across. I actually charge the Weaver. That secures the creep. You can see it did 132 damage. That's insane. Hits the Ursa, hits the Weaver, getting damage on all of them, and setting me up for a position to get the range creep as well. And oh my god, the overcharge is insane. But yeah, you could see why this lane is so strong. I have infinite sustain, and I can do what I just did on a 17-second cooldown and just continue to bash and just mess with people over and over again. Now, as the laning stage progresses, what you're looking to do is basically find the support isolated. Going on the core can be okay, but generally safe laners have pretty high armor, so it's hard to kill them. Of course, if you've been chipping them down throughout the lane and they're low HP, feel free to charge them. But in this clip here, you're going to notice that you don't really want to dive. I had the really good awareness to basically identify that the Weaver was out of position and had already committed Sakuchi, and as a result, he has no escape method. You can imagine that a hero like Weaver with no Sakuchi is the perfect target. Frankly, any ranged hero with low movement speed is perfect. Weaver, however, in specific has 275 movement speed, which is like the lowest in Dota. So once he uses that, it's a free kill. But CM is the same, AA is the same, any of these ranged heroes, if you can catch them out of position and get a bash, you'll kill them. I didn't even get a bash there, and I still killed them. But in general, notice, please guys, notice how my priority is in CS, okay? Look at my CS. I am number 4 here. I'm behind, okay, the mid laners who are both flash farming the small camp. There's no way I can contest that. A Tide Hunter, you know, that's a hero that naturally has really high CS, and then I'm even with everyone else. I don't have, like, good creep securing abilities. Like, Charge is mediocre. It does the job for the range creeps early on, but it's mediocre because it's 17-second cooldown, and yet I still have top tier CS. Okay, so the next thing is your ultimate. Once you have your ultimate, this is generally when I'm going to be recommending you look to gank. I don't really recommend leaving your lane outside of this timing, and the reason for that is your hero is very item dependent. It scales very well with items. For instance, the phase boots is a very important timing. Echo Saber is a significant increase in just overall damage and the ability to chase people down. So I don't really recommend leaving lane until you have ultimate, but this clip is the perfect opportunity to charge. When Ranger was contesting the bounty room very, very deep, right? She went way too far, and I have my ultimate. So this is absolutely the situation where you want to fight. Another good example is power runes. For instance, if you know, let's say a Shadow Fiend is contesting this rune, or Lina, that is absolutely the perfect opportunity to get in and charge with your ultimate at the minute 8 or minute 10 fight. So the next play I want you guys to consider is the ulti setup play. So basically what a lot of people do wrong is they always initiate with charge. The problem with initiating with charge is it bumps the enemy away from your team. Even though it's not by a lot, it matters. It absolutely matters. So instead, you'll notice in this clip here, my Kunkka was approaching. I had good map awareness here. I saw that my Kunkka was approaching, clearly looking for a kill. Kunkka is a very good hero against Wind Ranger. X setup is just fantastic. And so I set up with the ulti instead of going with charge. If I led with charge, it would have been either canceled by Shackle Shot, or it would have pushed her away to the point where my Kunkka might not have been in position. I think he probably would have been, but you get the point, right? So this is a good option. You ulti, and then you follow up with charge, and it pushes them really, really far back. Right, it's incredible actually. You know, let's say I charge first, she probably would have ended up like here. Instead, she's basically at the hill, and so my team doesn't have to overcommit at all. And guys, I always like to stress this, but anytime in Dota, you can bring the fight to your team, you don't make them overcommit, your teammates will be able to stay in position and not overextend. That's gonna cause them to just naturally stay alive and not get caught by big spells. The next thing to consider is pushing side lanes. After that mid fight ended, I immediately got into the side lane and started farming. You do not need to force fights 24/7. I know for a fact if you would just look at any spear breaker in your average pub, they're just charging. As I said, with Greater Bash, you farm pretty well. On top of that, you're one of the hardest heroes in the game to gank, simply because of bulldoze. You have status resist. If you get gone on, you pop bulldoze, you click your phase boots, and you run away. And you're like a Spectre. If your team ends up getting gone on, you can obviously show up. It's not a problem. And so right here, you notice, okay, my team's getting dove. I'm farming the entire time, getting my XP, getting my net worth up, right? You'll notice, look at my net worth. I'm up there, right? Even though I'm not farming that much, I'm up there. And fight breaks out. Okay, shift over, right? Respond to the dive. This is the perfect way to play. It's going to give you a nice balance of fighting and farming. You're going to scale, and you're still going to be able to show up to the fight. And you'll notice here, I'm able to come in, clean up the kill onto the Wind Ranger. After that, we shift over to the Dark Willow, and we finish her off as well. Ends up being a really easy fight. Also, one thing to note with fight execution is that when you're charging, you can use phase boots and bulldoze. And greater bash damage is based upon your movement speed. So it's very important before the charge actually connects. I even had to learn this myself, but before the charge actually connects, you want to pop both of them to optimize your damage. And you'll see that I do that right here. So as I'm about to connect, phase boots, bulldoze, connects, does the most damage. Now, assuming you've scaled in levels, the hero really can play extremely high tempo. You notice in this fight here, I go in, I charge a Tide Hunter, and I connect with my team. I'm looking to actually protect my Kunkka here and just kind of connect with the backline. This ends up working out because I'm able to get a bash onto the Wind, I clean her up. After that, I can charge the Weaver. And really what's beautiful about Spear Picker offlane is if you get a chipped vest, and just in general, if you have a wand, you're going to be really sustainable. I want you to pay attention to my items here. We'll quickly go over that before we look at the rest of the fight. I have a wand, an Echo Saber, and Phase Boots. Honestly, you could go this build every single game, and it's gonna be good. I also bought a Windlace. I don't think you have to go Windlace. I think it's very good. I personally bought it because I was with Io in lane, and so it not only buffs my movement speed, but also Io's movement speed, so it's basically double the value. But it's just good in general. It makes sense, right? Spear Breaker. Of course, movement speed is gonna be good. And in terms of neutral item, I honestly think Chipped Vest is maybe the best by far. Having a mana item is okay, but the regen you get from Chipped Vest and the ability to just farm neutral camps with it is incredible. So if you can get Chipped Vest, take Chipped Vest. I think it's the best. But yeah, you notice the enemy team kept trying to dive me here. They kept trying to commit, and I'm just not afraid. As long as I have Bulldoze active, I know that their stunts aren't going to do very much, and I'm able to clean up the fight. I mean, it ends up being a very long, drawn-out fight, but my regen's really high. I'm currently at 12.6 when I'm out of the tower range, and this is just insane, right? Like, I'm constantly healing. Every 10 seconds that goes by, I get an extra 120 HP, actually more. And you notice I'm able to just kite around. I'm playing around my charge cooldown here. You don't just like, for instance, Tidehunter. I don't just want to man up to a Tidehunter, especially not when I'm Anchor Smash, right? My damage is reduced. So instead, what I'm doing is I'm playing around the charge cooldown. I'm able to dodge the Weaver bugs in this clip, kite out, kite out, kite out. My Magnus hits a really sick RP, follow it up, and always charge through. Notice how I don't charge the Weaver here? I would be weary about my Greater Bash not hitting the Tide, so I charge Tide, and I hit them both, and we clean up the fight. Beautifully done by me and the Magnus, and it ends up setting up for a very snowbally game. One thing to consider as well is that this hero is basically a Nature's Prophet or an Ember. Anytime you're low on resources, what you can do is TP back to base, and then charge out. And you can charge anywhere. A lot of the time what I recommend you do in pubs if your team isn't ready to make plays is charge to the side lanes. For instance here I could have easily charged top. Unfortunately there's only one creep, so there's a decent chance my charge will get cancelled, and that's not so good. And so instead I charged a Wind Ranger, which is going to get me out onto the map. The next thing I want to talk about is probably my favorite part about playing Spear Breaker, which is forcing TPs, right? This is one of those things that almost no one does because it's impossible to see the impact unless you really watch replays. And so, hopefully I can provide you with this information here today. So, I'm going mid, okay? I can't kill Wind Ranger alone. It's not even close, okay? Like, it's not very close. Spear Breaker in general isn't gonna solo kill cores. That's not what he does, okay? He chips them down and he sets up for +1s, but he only really solo kills supports in the early game. So, I'm charging here. I do have my Kunkka, so I have a +1, and you notice I keep going with the charge. So, what does this do, okay? What does this do? It's gonna make them all panic! Of course it is! If you saw Spearbreaker charging your Wind Ranger down mid, what are you gonna do? You're gonna TP, of course you are! You don't want her to die and then get mad and feed, right? This guy was tilted already. And I can tell you that because he actually griefs later on. So his team ends up TPing it, and let's look at the free camera. So as I pull it up, I'm charging mid, I set up, and what's really awesome is look, Willow TP, Weaver TP, Tide TP. I mean, everyone TP'd besides Ursa. Like, literally, their whole team came mid. Just because I went from, instead of ending it here, I ended it here and backed off. Notice how I didn't commit here. That would be just as stupid. But this is beautiful. Insanely high impact. And most people will never understand how good that is. Because now, not only do we just know where they are, they don't have TPs, and they're not farming. Like, guys, the biggest part about Dota a lot of the time is just farming, and none of them are farming. Besides Ursa, and maybe Wind a little bit. You get the point. Huge space. And now, because they TP'd mid, they're like, I guess we gotta make a play, right? And so they go on our Kunkka. Like, that's obviously not so good. You don't really want to go on Kunkka. He was level 15 with a gajillion items, so they go on the worst possible target. And this sets up for a free go onto the win. And as I said, none of them are still farming. And so this was just super good, like literally so optimal. Space for Drow, opening the map. I even think I could have honestly just charged top here. Oh yeah, I do. There you go. That's funny. I know myself too well. But nonetheless, the reason why is when you force the mid, if you split up the map, boom, you're winning the farming battle, you know? Like we're winning the farming battle mad hard here. We're farming all 3 lanes. Their Wind Ranger's dead. It's super good. Damn, did Wind TP top to kill me? I read the shit out of this game. I actually popped the fuck off this game. All of my movements, I feel like not all of them, but like I was on point. Like even here, I remember saying like Wind, like I want to push this next wave, but I think Wind's gonna TP because she was respawning in 3 seconds, and like anytime you're respawning, you look for a kill, and so I didn't go. Holy, she TP'd. I didn't know in the game, but and she smoked. Absolutely fucking shit on. Movement god. All right, basically to end off this game, last clip, click my phase boost, click bulldoze before it connects, and yeah, just frontlining. just don't be afraid to frontline. Bulldoze is like the best frontline ability in the game, so come through. I actually didn't click my face boots there. GG. Freaking noob. But, oh my god. And this is where the win feeds. Oh, yeah. God damn. But alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're inspired to play a little bit of Spirit Breaker. I will quickly go over talents and items right now that you can go, just in general. Personally, I actually skipped the armor and the night vision in this game. Spirit Breaker has pretty high armor, just in general, so you don't really need it. The night vision is honestly good, so I would consider it, especially if you hit level 10 when it's night. Like, let's say you hit level 10 at around minute 15, you're not having a great game, then it's like pretty value. But in general, I prefer skipping it. Just maxing out Bulldoze is really nice. It scales incredibly well. Charge scales really well. Just your ability scale really well. So I skip it. At level 15, I recommend the 40 damage. Honestly, Bulldoze cooldown is really good. So if you think you're just a frontliner, like once again, you're kind of feeding and you have no damage items, you can go Bulldoze cooldown just a frontline, but usually 40 damage is the way to go. At level 20, what I just looked up is that most people are taking charge of darkness movement speed. And I believe the reason for this, I even had the idea when I was playing this game, is that it lets you one-shot the wave. So with phase boots, even with phase boots, windlace, and Bulldoze active, I wasn't one-shotting the wave with charge. And that would force me to miss some last hits and just have to spend more time auto-attacking the creep wave. So Charge of Darkness movement speed not only just makes you do more damage to the wave, it's also more damage to heroes, you get across the map faster. In general, I think it's the better talent. Greater bash chance is not too bad, especially if you're like mega snowballing. It can be good, just like bashing people to death. If you have like a ton of farm for whatever reason, then I think it's solid. But other than that, I think the more reliable talent is movement speed. At level 25, I mean, 800 elf is a ton, but honestly, greater bash damage with the build that you're generally going is really, really tempting. So once again, it kind of just depends on the game. You got to look at the game state. If you're like constantly solo killing people and pushing in waves, then the greater bash damage is the way to go. But once again, if you've went more of like a utility build, you're behind, you bought a blade mail, you could probably go 800 damage and play from there. Now, in terms of items, there's a couple different builds that I've seen. I've seen Phase Boots Shadow Blade into Axe. I've seen Phase Boots Echo Saber into Axe. I've seen Phase Boots Echo Saber Shadow Blade into Axe. It all kind of just depends on how you think the game is going. The reason why I liked Axe in this game was I was having a very good game, and Axe lets you split push and farm the most. It's a 7-second cooldown charge, which basically lets you go around the map very, very quickly. So there's that. On top of that, the Shadow Blade, though, is a much earlier timing. It's 1200 gold cheaper. It's also much better at killing people earlier on. So if you're being more active and you're making plays in the side lane, you have a very high tempo team, Shadow Blade is going to be the better item in that case. Echo Saber, in my opinion, is just the most well-rounded item for Spirit Breaker. But I did even see people rushing Shadow Blade, as I said, and I think that's if they think they need to make plays constantly. And to be fair, you can click Shadow Blade when you're charging, which I believe lets you one-shot waves. And on top of that, just catch people off guard, as well as do a lot of damage coming out of the charge. But alright, that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had an absolute blast playing this game and making this video. Hopefully you did as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace!